In a quiet suburban town in the United States, Aunt Mary Collins, a warm-hearted but sharp-minded American woman in her late 50s, receives an unexpected notice from the U.S. Ordinance and Safety Administration. Unlike most people her age, Mary is curious rather than scared. She believes every official message hides a story worth uncovering. When the notice mentions public safety evaluation, Mary decides to personally investigate how community rules, safety systems, and regulations affect ordinary citizens. With her nephew Jason Miller supporting her, she begins a journey across neighborhoods, meeting officers, factory managers, public workers, and everyday families. Along the way, Mary discovers hidden challenges, inspiring stories, and the true purpose behind federal ordinances. Her mission becomes bigger than herself. She wants to help Americans understand safety laws in a simple, human, and relatable way. The morning sun rose gently over the peaceful American suburb of Ridgewood Heights, casting soft golden light across neatly trimmed lawns and quiet sidewalks. Inside a cozy white brick house on Maple Drive, Aunt Mary Collins stood in her kitchen, humming an old jazz tune while preparing her morning coffee. She had the kind of presence that made a room feel warmer, slightly dramatic, often humorous, but always sincere. Her silver-streaked hair was tied back casually, and her glasses rested halfway down her nose as she skimmed through the day's mail. Bills, advertisements, coupons she would save but never use, and then a thick, white envelope stamped with the U.S. Ordinance and Safety Administration emblem. Mary paused. She adjusted her glasses, stared at the seal, and took a slow, wary breath. "Well now, this isn't your everyday coupon," she murmured. For a moment, she simply looked at it, as if the envelope might reveal its contents on its own. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, as if encouraging her to open it. Finally, she slid her thumb under the flap and unfolded the letter. Her eyes scanned the page. Public Safety Evaluation Civilian Participant Notice. Your residence and community area have been selected. A representative will follow up. Mary lowered the paper slowly. Good heavens, what does this even mean? Selected for what? An experiment? A contest? A safety quiz show? She whispered to herself. She wasn't frightened. Not exactly. Mary Collins was the type who faced problems the way some people faced a buffet. Head-on, curious, always ready for a little excitement. But even she felt a knot of uncertainty swirling inside her chest. Before her mind could spin any further, the front door opened and her nephew, Jason Miller, stepped in. He was 24, tall, calm, and far more organized than anyone else in the family. He worked part-time as a community reporter and full-time as Mary's unofficial problem solver. "Aunt Mary, you okay? You look like you just found out your favorite chocolate was discontinued," Jason said as he dropped his backpack on the couch. Mary held up the letter dramatically. This arrived. Jason took it, scanned it quickly, and raised his eyebrows. Whoa, U.S. Ordinance and Safety Administration. That's serious. Mary placed her hands on her hips. Serious how? Serious like jury duty, or serious like I accidentally broke a federal law when I double-parked last Wednesday? Jason chuckled. "Aunt Mary, I'm pretty sure double parking isn't a federal offense." "Well, it should be. Half the world would behave better if parking rules were stricter," she declared. Jason shook his head fondly. "It doesn't say you're in trouble. It says you've been selected for some public safety evaluation program." Mary leaned closer. "But why me? Why my house? Why now?" Jason shrugged. "Maybe they're doing a routine check. Or maybe they want civilian feedback." Mary sank into a chair. "Jason, I've lived in this house for 30 years. I've never been selected for anything, except a raffle I didn't want to win." Jason smirked. "That was a fruit basket, Aunt Mary. You were allergic to half the fruit." "This feels different," she said quietly.
tapping the letter. Official. Important. Like they're testing something. Or expecting something. Her voice trembled just enough for Jason to notice. He pulled out a chair, sat beside her, and spoke gently. Hey, there's nothing to worry about. If this was bad, they would have contacted you differently. This looks formal and harmless. Mary nodded, but didn't look convinced. She hated uncertainty. She hated unanswered questions. And most of all, she hated feeling left out of something important. She stood up suddenly, energized by a thought. Jason, what if this is actually valuable? What if this is a chance to understand how our community's safety systems work? People always complain about rules, but they never try to understand them. Maybe this notice is an opportunity. Jason blinked. You mean you want to go along with the program? Participate? Mary lifted her chin with confidence she didn't fully feel. Yes, why not? If the government wants citizens' feedback, then good bideness, I'll give it. Maybe it's time someone with common sense looks into these things. Jason laughed softly. You do realize this could involve interviews, inspections, maybe field visits, right? Mary raised her eyebrow. Jason, I raised 3 kids, managed 2 jobs, and survived 8 family reunions. I can survive whatever evaluation they throw at me. She placed the letter on the cable, smoothed it with her hand, and exhaled deeply. There was fear in her heart, but also purpose, curiosity, a strange excitement that made her pulse quicken. For years, she had lived a quiet, simple life, but now, unexpectedly, the government had knocked on her door, and she wasn't about to ignore it. She turned to Jason. You're going to help me with this. Jason nodded immediately. Of course, whatever you need. Mary smiled, the kind of smile that comes when a decision has been made. Then, let's begin, she said. If the U.S. Ordinance wants Mary Collins, they're going to get her. And with that, the ordinary morning ended. And Mary's unexpected journey, one that would take her through neighborhoods, offices, factories, and the very heart of American safety systems, quietly began.
The following day arrived with a crisp breeze drifting through the streets of Ridgewood Heights. Aunt Mary Collins sat at her dining table, staring at the U.S. Ordinance notice as if it were a puzzle she was determined to solve. She had slept little. Her mind had wandered all night, imagining every possible scenario the upcoming evaluation might bring. Was it merely a formality, a routine check, or something far more meaningful? Her quiet contemplation was interrupted by the sound of her cell phone vibrating. She reached for it, expecting a spam call or a pharmacy reminder, but instead the screen displayed, "Unknown federal line." Mary's heartbeat picked up speed. "Well, here we go," she whispered, and answered. "Good morning. Is this Mary Collins?" Came a steady, courteous male voice. "This is her," Mary replied, trying to sound calm and competent. "This is Officer Daniel Pierce from the U.S. Ordinance and Safety Administration. I'm calling regarding this civilian participation notice delivered to your residence yesterday." Mary sat upright, suddenly formal. "Yes, Officer Pierce. I received it." "Excellent. We're conducting a community-level evaluation, and your area has been selected for observation, interviews, and civilian feedback. We'd like to schedule an initial visit with you today, if possible." Mary blinked. "Today? As in, today? "Yes, ma'am. The process is simple and non-intrusive. We just want to understand your awareness of local safety systems, emergency procedures, and how regulations influence daily life." Mary swallowed nervously, but answered confidently. "Well, Officer Pierce, I'd be happy to assist. What time?" "Within the next hour, if that works for you." Mary looked around her house. Coffee mugs on the counter, folded laundry on the chair, a plant tilted awkwardly because she had watered only one side. "1 hour is perfectly fine," she said, forcing a bright tone. "Great. My assistant Ava Robinson will accompany me. We'll see you soon." As the call ended, Mary exhaled sharply. 1 hour, 1 hour, she muttered, suddenly bustling around the house.
She reorganized pillows, dusted shelves, fixed picture frames, and rearranged 3 items on the coffee table 5 different times. She checked her reflection twice and practiced a polite but confident smile. Jason arrived moments later, holding a camera and notepad. "You're early," Mary said, half relieved, half panicking. "You texted me, 'Hurry over, government coming.' That sounded urgent," Jason replied, raising a brow. "Aunt Mary, they're arriving in less than an hour. Officer Pierce and some assistant. We need to look presentable, intelligent, cooperative, patriotic." Jason chuckled. "Aunt Mary, you're all those things by default." She paused, then nodded. "True. But I want to make an impression, a good one, the kind that shows I take these things seriously." Together, they prepared the living room, ensuring it looked neat but not staged. Jason set his camera aside, choosing instead to simply be present if Mary needed help. As time passed, Mary's nervousness settled into calm anticipation. Right on schedule, a black federal sedan pulled up outside her house. Through the window, Mary saw 2 figures step out: a tall, dark-haired man in a crisp suit, Officer Daniel Pierce, and beside him a composed young woman in professional attire, Ava Robinson. "They look like people who iron their socks," Mary whispered. "They look like official," Jason corrected. The knock on the door was firm but polite. Mary opened it with her practiced smile. "Welcome, officers. Please come in." Officer Pierce nodded with friendly professionalism. "Thank you for having us, Ms. Collins." Ava offered a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Mary led them to the living room. They sat, and Officer Pierce opened a sleek tablet. "Ms. Collins, we appreciate your willingness to participate. This evaluation helps us understand how safety ordinances function from the perspective of citizens. Your input is valuable." Mary nodded. "I'm honored to help. I believe rules exist for a reason, and people should understand them." Pierce smiled approvingly. "That's exactly the mindset we hope to see." Ava began with simple questions. "How familiar are you with community safety drills? Do you know the emergency alerts used in your area? Have you ever had concerns about neighborhood compliance?" Mary answered thoughtfully, sometimes humorously, but always sincerely. Jason watched with subtle pride. This was Aunt Mary at her best: observant, honest, articulate. After several minutes, Pierce glanced around the house. "May we do a brief environmental assessment? Nothing invasive, just checking general safety adherence." Mary gestured toward the hallway. "Of course, everything is in its rightful place, mostly." They walked through the living room, kitchen, and hallway. Pierce took quiet notes while Ava observed details: fire alarm placement, first aid kit accessibility, window locks, and emergency exit clarity. At one point, Ava gently commented, "You're surprisingly well prepared. Most homes we visit are missing at least 3 key safety items." Mary smiled proudly. "I raised children here. You learn to expect the unexpected." When the assessment ended, they returned to the living room. Pierce closed his tablet. "Ms. Collins, I must say, your home reflects awareness and responsibility. It's clear you take public safety seriously." Mary felt a sudden warmth in her chest. "Thank you. That means a lot." Pierce continued, "This initial visit concludes the first phase. In the coming weeks, we'll invite you to observe various community operations, emergency centers, ordinance briefings, safety hubs, and more. We want genuine civilian understanding. You fit the profile perfectly." Mary exchanged a glance with Jason. She hadn't expected this. Not praise, not further involvement, certainly not being perfect for anything government-related. But the moment felt right, important, purposeful. Pierce stood and extended his hand. "Welcome to the program, Miss Collins. We look forward to working with you." Mary shook his hand firmly. "And I look forward to learning." As the officers left and the car drove away, Mary remained standing at the doorway, watching until they turned the corner. Jason finally broke the silence. "So, how do you feel?" Mary exhaled deeply, a spark glowing in her eyes. "I feel like something meaningful just began." And she was right. This was only the start.
2 days after the initial visit, Ridgewood Heights was quieter than usual. The afternoon sky was pale blue,
the kind that made everything feel open and expectant. Aunt Mary Collins sat on her porch, a notebook on her lap, sipping iced tea as she tried to organize her thoughts about the unexpected path she had stepped onto. The visit from Officer Pierce and Ava had left her curious, deeply curious, about what lay behind the smooth, polished surface of federal systems. Jason arrived right on time, as if he sensed she was waiting. "You're thinking again," he said, stepping onto the porch. "I think often," Mary replied. "It's the acting on those thoughts that gets interesting." Jason chuckled and sat beside her. "So what now?" Mary tapped her notebook. "Officer Pierce said upcoming community operations. I want to understand what that means. If they're inviting civilians, there must be a reason. People don't design programs like these unless there's something important behind them." Before Jason could respond, Mary's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She inhaled sharply and answered. "Miss Collins, this is Ava Robinson. We'd like to invite you to your first field observation today, if you're available." Mary straightened, heart fluttering. "Of course I'm available. Where should I be?" "We'll send you the location. It's a community safety coordination center. You'll learn how local ordinance teams manage neighborhood alerts and emergency response. Officer Pierce and I will meet you there." After ending the call, Mary closed her notebook and stood up with sudden determination. "Jason, we're going." Jason blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that," Mary repeated, grabbing her bag. History doesn't wait. The facility was located near the edge of town, a low, modern building with tinted windows and a small American flag waving at the entrance. It didn't stand out much, but something about it felt precise, intentional. As Mary and Jason approached, the automatic doors slid open, revealing Officer Pierce. "Miss Collins, glad you made it." Ava joined them, holding a digital tablet. This center coordinates safety alerts for multiple neighborhoods. Most civilians rarely see how it works behind the scenes. Mary's eyes widened as they entered a bright, organized control room. Large screens displayed maps, alert statuses, weather data, and emergency routing systems. People at workstations monitored everything with calm focus. Ava guided them toward a workstation where a young technician, Eli Turner, greeted them with a shy smile. "This is where we process civilian reports, environmental data, and ordinance alerts. If there's an issue, a fire hazard, infrastructure problem, or safety violation, we're the first to know." Mary leaned closer, fascinated. "You mean one call or report can trigger all this?" Eli nodded. "Exactly. And every alert carries responsibility. That's the core of our work." Officer Pierce added, "Most citizens don't realize how much coordination it takes to keep communities safe. That's why your participation matters." Mary listened carefully, absorbing every detail. The information flow, the chain of communication, the protocols balancing speed with accuracy. She had never imagined that a simple ordinance notice could lead her into such a complex world. Jason observed her and whispered, "You're thinking a lot more than you expected, aren't you?" Mary whispered back, "Jason, this is incredible. It's like discovering the backstage of a play we've watched our entire lives." Ava led them to another section where operators responded to real-time concerns. This area manages field inspections. For example, when you receive notices at home about structural safety, compliance, or maintenance, the data originates here. Mary glanced around with new respect. It all feels alive, constantly moving. That's exactly it. Safety isn't static, it's active. It requires awareness from both sides, officials and citizens. Pierce motioned them toward a private briefing room. "Miss Collins, we'd like your perspective so far," he said once the door closed. Mary took a moment before answering. "Well, I see dedication, structure, purpose, and a system that works only if everyone understands their part. Most people just follow rules without knowing why. Seeing this changes how I feel about ordinances." Pierce nodded approvingly. That understanding is what we are trying to build, and your insights will help us refine how we communicate with the public. Mary felt a small but powerful sense of pride. Jason noticed it too. After the tour ended, the officers walked them back to the lobby. "This is only the beginning," Ava said softly. "There's much more to show you." Mary smiled, steady and sincere. "And I'm ready for it." When they stepped outside, the sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the pavement. Jason held the door as Mary walked out, her expression thoughtful yet determined. "So, what did you think?" Mary looked ahead, her eyes reflecting a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. "I think I'm starting to understand why they selected me, and I think this is something I'm meant to do." As they walked toward the car, the first real transformation in Mary Collins had already begun. Not forced, not accidental, but born from a genuine desire to understand the world that quietly worked behind her everyday life.
The next morning arrived with a gray sky stretching over Ridgewood Heights. A soft drizzle pattered against the windows, coating the world outside in a thin veil of mist. Aunt Mary Collins stood by her kitchen counter, warming her hands around a mug of tea. The memories of the Safety Coordination Center still lingered in her mind. Not just the screens and systems, but the sense of responsibility she had felt within those walls. Jason entered through the back door, shaking moisture from his jacket. "Aunt Mary, you're up early," he said. "I barely slept. I kept thinking about how everything in that center was connected. Ordinary people like us depend on systems we never even see." Jason leaned on the counter. "You sound like someone who's found her purpose." Mary smiled gently. "Maybe I have." Her phone buzzed. She checked the screen. Another unknown number. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, ordinance again?" Mary nodded and answered, "Ms. Collins, this is Officer Daniel Pierce. If it's a good time, we'd like to invite you to your second observation today. It's a bit different from the first." Mary straightened. "I'm available. What is it about?" Pierce hesitated for a moment, as though weighing his words. "This time, we want you to see how ordinance rules interact with real environments. We'll be visiting a field route." Mary paused. "A field route? As in outdoors? In the rain?" "Yes, ma'am. Field inspections operate rain or shine. But if you're uncomfortable—" "No," Mary interrupted. "I'll come. Just send the location." Jason grinned as she ended the call. "You brave soul." "Don't tease me," Mary said, slipping into her raincoat. "This is important." They arrived at the location 30 minutes later, a quiet industrial street on the outskirts of town. Tall warehouses lined the road, each with wide loading docks and metal sidings that glistened from the rain. A federal vehicle waited under a street lamp, its headlights cutting through the mist. Officer Pierce and Ava Robinson stepped out, both in waterproof jackets. They looked completely comfortable in the weather. "Ms. Collins, thank you for coming," Ava said warmly. Pierce gestured toward a large warehouse ahead. "This facility stores materials used by multiple contractors. We conduct regular ordinance compliance checks here. Today, we'd like you to observe." Mary swallowed. "Of course." The warehouse's doors slid open with a low mechanical hum. Inside, the air was cool and faintly metallic. Long rows of organized crates and equipment stretched into the distance. Workers moved with quiet purpose, their footsteps echoing lightly. A tall supervisor approached, wearing a name badge labeled Frank Walters. "Morning, officers, and you must be the civilian observer?" Mary extended her hand. "Yes, Mary Collins." "Pleasure, ma'am. We're glad to show you how things work on the ground." They walked together as Pierce explained the process. Facilities like these store regulated items, machinery, tools, materials that must follow strict safety guidelines. Our job is to ensure everything, from storage to usage, meets U.S. ordinance standards.
Mary listened intently, her eyes scanning every corner. She'd never seen the working spine of her community this closely before. It felt like lifting a curtain on an entire world. Ava pointed to a section where red safety tags hung from various crates. These tags show when items were last inspected. Missing, expired, or tampered tags are serious violations. Mary raised a cautious hand. Has anyone ever tried to bypass these rules? Frank nodded. Sometimes. Usually out of ignorance, not malice. People underestimate how dangerous small mistakes can be. As they moved deeper into the warehouse, the group stopped at a workstation where 2 employees were analyzing equipment data. Ava explained, "We use digital logs to maintain transparency. Every tool has a code. If something is misrecorded, the system flags it." Mary leaned closer to the screen, fascinated again. And all this happens quietly, in the background. No one ever sees it. "That's why your perspective matters," Pierce said. "Most citizens think ordinances are paperwork. They're not. They're safeguards." Mary nodded slowly, absorbing his words. They continued walking until Frank paused beside a stack of crates. "Officer Pierce, I think you should see this." Pierce stepped forward, scanning the crates. One of them was tagged with an orange marker. Ava immediately opened her digital tablet. "What's wrong?" Mary asked gently. Frank pointed. "This crate's tag was scanned yesterday, but the log shows no entry. That means either the scan failed or someone didn't complete the process." Ava typed quickly. "It could be an error or a sign of noncompliance." Pierce turned to Mary. "This is why we conduct these inspections. One incomplete step can cause a chain reaction." Mary felt a subtle shift inside her, a realization, sharp and sudden. She wasn't just observing anymore. She was witnessing the thin line between order and risk. Frank looked embarrassed. "I'll get my team to recheck everything." "No blame," Pierce reassured. "Just correction." Mary admired the professionalism. No shouting, no panic, just calm, precise action. After everything was rechecked and logged properly, the group walked back outside. The rain had slowed to a delicate drizzle. Mary inhaled the damp air deeply. Pierce turned to her. "So, Ms. Collins, impressions?" Mary took her time answering. "I saw people who care, systems that protect, mistakes that matter, and responsibility that comes quietly, without applause." Ava smiled softly. "That's beautifully put." Jason placed a hand on Mary's shoulder. "You're really getting into this." Mary chuckled. "Well, someone has to understand how the world keeps spinning." As they wrapped up, Pierce said, "We'll be contacting you again soon. The next phase involves community interaction points. More hands-on, more insight." Mary nodded, feeling a warmth grow within her chest. "Thank you," she said sincerely, "for trusting me to see all this." As the officers entered their vehicle and drove away, Mary and Jason stood under the dim sky, listening to the fading rumble of the engine. Jason finally spoke. "You know, this isn't just an evaluation anymore. You're changing in ways you don't even realize." Mary looked at him surprised and a little moved. "Maybe," she said softly, "but whatever this journey becomes, I want to walk it fully." Her voice carried a quiet strength, and the rain, now reduced to a gentle mist, felt like the beginning of something deeper.
The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the kitchen blinds as Aunt Marlene stirred a simmering pot of rosemary soup, the scent drifting through her cozy home like a warm blanket. She hummed gently, an old tune from her childhood, until a sudden knock at the door interrupted her rhythm. It wasn't loud, but firm, the kind of knock that carried a purpose. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked toward the door, her footsteps slow and thoughtful. When she opened it, she found a man in a crisp navy jacket, a badge glinting faintly near his collar. His posture was steady, respectful, and unmistakably official. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Officer Grant Holloway. I hope this isn't a bad time."
Aunt Marlene smiled kindly, though curiosity sparkled behind her eyes. Not at all. What brings you here? Grant hesitated. A brief pause, as if selecting his next words with care. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about the old property across the street. You've lived here longer than anyone else. You might know things others don't. Marlene's heart tightened for a moment, memories flickering like shadows along the edges of her thoughts. She stepped aside, motioning him to enter. If it's about that place, then you'd better come in. Nothing about that house is ever simple. As Grant walked in, she sensed something deeper beneath his calm exterior. A weight. A story he hadn't told yet. She poured him a cup of tea, and he thanked her quietly, sitting at the edge of his chair like someone ready to move at any moment. After a moment, he finally spoke. We found something unusual in that house this morning. Something that suggests someone's been there recently. He glanced up, his eyes steady. And your name came up. Marlene froze, not because she felt guilty, but because she understood exactly what this meant. The past she'd kept locked away was stirring again, returning at a moment she least expected. She offered a calm but knowing smile. Well, Officer Holloway, if you're ready for answers, you'd better be ready for the truth, too. Grant leaned forward, his expression tightening. I am. The clock on her wall ticked once, sharp, steady, decisive, before she finally began. If that house has awakened, then we're all running out of time.
The morning air was crisp and carried the faint scent of dew as Aunt Mary Collins stepped onto her front porch. Today felt different. There was a subtle tension in the neighborhood, a quiet anticipation, almost like the world itself was holding its breath. Jason stood beside her, clutching a small notebook and a camera, ready to document anything important. Are you sure we're prepared for today? He asked, glancing at the stack of folders and printouts Mary had spread across the porch table. Mary adjusted her glasses and gave a determined nod. Prepared? Jason, we're never fully prepared. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we face what's ahead with our eyes wide open. Jason exhaled slowly. All right, eyes wide open. Got it. Their destination was a local community center that doubled as a coordination hub for ordinance-related operations. Officer Pierce had arranged a special session for Mary today, something he called hands-on participation. Mary didn't know the exact details, but she could feel the weight of importance in every message Pierce had sent. Upon arrival, the center buzzed with activity. Volunteers moved efficiently between stations. Monitors displayed real-time updates, and a few residents engaged in simulations designed to replicate emergency scenarios. Mary's heart raced with excitement and curiosity. Welcome back, Miss Collins, Officer Pierce said, approaching with his usual calm authority. Today you'll be assisting in real-time ordinance monitoring. You'll see how our alerts are triggered, analyzed, and acted upon. Mary smiled, a mixture of nerves and exhilaration. I've never done anything like this in my life, but I'm ready. Ava Robinson led Mary and Jason to a workstation equipped with multiple screens and controls. You'll be observing neighborhood reports and learning how responses are coordinated. Think of it as the heart of the system. Every alert you see affects real people. As Mary settled into the chair, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, a monitor flashed a new notification. Community alert. Safety compliance check required. Ava guided her through the process. This one came in from a local school. The fire alarm system requires verification. Your role is to follow the protocol, track the report, verify information, and log your observations. Mary's eyes widened. This was it. The first time she would engage directly with the system she had been learning about. She followed the instructions meticulously, guided by Ava's calm voice and Jason's supportive presence. Each step revealed another layer of responsibility, another piece of the intricate puzzle that kept her community safe. Minutes passed, and soon multiple alerts came in simultaneously. Mary's focus sharpened, her hands steady despite the flurry of activity. She began noticing patterns, how small oversights could cascade into larger problems, how precise communication prevented mistakes. It was overwhelming yet exhilarating.
At one point, a critical alert popped up, a malfunction in a residential gas line detection system. Pierce and Ava exchanged quick glances. "Mary," Pierce said, "this is your moment to observe closely. See how we coordinate field response." Mary nodded, leaning forward. She watched as the operators dispatched technicians, logged updates, and ensured communication with emergency services. The system functioned like a perfectly synchronized orchestra. She felt a rush of respect, not just for the technology, but for the people behind it, the unsung heroes who maintained vigilance day and night. When the alert was resolved and the screens quieted, Mary leaned back, exhaling slowly. Jason noticed her expression, equal parts awe and fulfillment. "You did well," he said softly. "You stayed calm even when everything was happening at once." Mary smiled, a quiet pride shining in her eyes. "I never realized the world works like this behind the scenes, invisible, precise, and always moving. It's amazing." Pierce approached, his expression serious but encouraging. "You've learned more in one session than many civilians do in months. Your understanding will help us improve communication and efficiency." Mary nodded thoughtfully. "Then my job isn't just to observe. It's to bridge the gap between the system and the people it protects." As they left the center, the sun had begun to pierce through the clouds, bathing the streets in a soft golden light. Mary felt a renewed sense of purpose. This journey was becoming bigger than she had anticipated, transforming her, guiding her, and connecting her to something far greater than herself. Jason glanced at her. "Looks like this isn't just about ordinances anymore. It's about making a difference." Mary looked ahead, the wind teasing her hair. "Exactly, Jason, and I intend to see it through." And with that, Chapter 6 drew to a close, leaving Mary Collins more determined, more aware, and more connected to the unseen threads that held her community together.
The following morning, Ridgewood Heights was unusually quiet. Mist curled along the edges of sidewalks, and the faint hum of distant traffic seemed almost meditative. Aunt Mary Collins sat at her desk, flipping through notes she had meticulously taken over the past week. Every observation, every question, every pattern she noticed was recorded in neat handwriting. Jason leaned against the doorframe, sipping coffee and watching her work. "You really take this seriously," he said, a note of admiration in his voice. Mary looked up, her eyes sparkling. "Jason, this isn't just paperwork or curiosity. This is about understanding how everything works, the system, the people, the safety net that keeps our community alive. If I can see it, I can help others see it too." Before Jason could reply, her phone buzzed. It was Officer Pierce. "Miss Collins?" Pierce's voice was calm yet urgent. "We have a situation that requires your immediate observational input. There's a potential compliance issue at a local medical facility. Nothing dangerous yet, but your perspective would be valuable." Mary's pulse quickened. "Understood." Jason raised an eyebrow. "You know, most people would avoid this." Mary shook her head, a determined smile forming. "Most people aren't trying to understand how their world works, Jason. I am." Within 20 minutes, they arrived at the medical facility, a modern building with sleek glass panels reflecting the morning sun. Nurses and staff moved quickly, but calmly, their routines uninterrupted by the presence of the outsiders. Pierce met them at the entrance. "The facility has reported some discrepancies in their emergency protocols. We want you to observe how they handle procedural checks, communication, and compliance. Remember, this is about learning, not judging." Mary nodded, following Pierce and Ava into the building. Jason trailed behind, notebook ready. Inside, the atmosphere was precise, almost clinical. Staff were performing routine drills, testing alarms, and reviewing evacuation plans. Mary watched carefully, noticing subtle lapses, an unattended fire extinguisher, a misaligned emergency exit sign, or a delayed response to a test alert. "Notice these details," Pierce said softly. "Even minor errors can compound in real situations." Mary took in every detail, her mind piecing together a mental map of the workflow.
She asked thoughtful questions, noting not just what was wrong, but why and how improvements could be made. Ava whispered explanations, guiding her without overshadowing her observations. Suddenly, a minor alarm went off in the emergency wing. Staff reacted immediately, checking systems and reporting to supervisors. Mary's eyes widened. "It's seamless," she whispered to Jason. "Even with a real alarm, the procedure runs like clockwork." Pierce observed her expression. "That's the point of these drills. We don't just want systems. We want reliable human response integrated with them." Mary nodded slowly, understanding settling deeper. This wasn't just about ordinances. It was about people. Systems were tools, but humans were the core. After the session, Pierce gathered them outside. "Miss Collins, your observations have been invaluable. You notice details most civilians overlook, and your questions help us refine training procedures." Mary felt a quiet satisfaction. "I'm beginning to see how everything fits together, how even the smallest part of the chain matters." Jason smiled. "And you're becoming the bridge between the system and the people." Mary looked ahead at the clear morning sky, inhaling deeply. "Exactly. That's my role now. To understand, to observe, and to share." As they drove home, the streets of Ridgewood Heights glimmered with fresh light from the misty morning. Mary felt the weight of responsibility, but also the excitement of purpose. Every step she took brought her closer to understanding the delicate balance between rules, people, and safety. And with each passing day, Aunt Mary Collins was becoming more than an observer. She was becoming a guardian of knowledge, ready to guide her community through understanding, awareness, and care.
The sun was just beginning to climb above the rooftops of Ridgewood Heights, casting long golden streaks across the quiet streets. Aunt Mary Collins stood at her front gate, surveying the neighborhood with a sense of purpose that had grown stronger with each passing day. The past week had changed her perspective. She no longer saw ordinances as abstract rules, but as the invisible threads that held her community together. Jason arrived carrying a small backpack filled with cameras, notebooks, and recording devices. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked with a grin. Mary smiled, adjusting her glasses. "Always. Today, we're going deeper. It's one thing to observe systems indoors, but it's another to see how they function out in the field." Their destination was a local community park, where a scheduled safety audit was underway. Officer Pierce and Ava Robinson were already on site, coordinating a team of volunteers and city employees. Mary's pulse quickened. This was the first time she would witness the direct impact of ordinances on public spaces. "Welcome back, Miss Collins," Pierce greeted warmly. "Today, we'll be examining outdoor compliance, everything from playground equipment to emergency signage. You'll see how public spaces adhere to regulations that protect families, children, and visitors." Mary nodded. "I've been looking forward to this." The park was alive with early morning activity, children playing, joggers moving along paths, and families setting up picnic areas. Volunteers moved efficiently, inspecting benches, swings, trash disposal units, and safety signs. Mary followed closely, notebook in hand, observing the minute details. "See that?" Ava said, pointing to a set of swings. "The safety harnesses have to be inspected monthly. Even one loose bolt could lead to serious injuries." Mary crouched beside the swings, examining the hardware. "These are simple things, but they can make a huge difference." Pierce nodded. "Exactly. Ordinances aren't about rules for rules' sake. They're about preventing harm, often before anyone even realizes it could happen." Mary's attention shifted to a small pond nearby. A safety barrier had been installed, but she noticed a gap in one section where a child could potentially slip through. She called Ava over. "This needs a minor adjustment," she said calmly. "It's not dangerous now, but it could become one if ignored." Ava made a note on her tablet. "Thank you for pointing that out, Miss Collins. Many inspectors would overlook it." Jason, observing, quietly, leaned closer. "You're good at this. You notice what others don't." Mary smiled, feeling a quiet satisfaction.
It's about understanding the consequences, Jason. That's what makes the difference. The team continued their audit, moving through picnic areas, pathways, and sports courts. Mary asked thoughtful questions, observing how volunteers communicated issues, recorded data, and coordinated with officials. The process was meticulous, but Mary saw the impact. Children played safely, families walked confidently, and the community's trust in its spaces was reinforced. By the end of the morning, Mary's notebook was filled with observations, suggestions, and reflections. Pierce approached her as the team packed up. "Miss Collins," he said sincerely, "your perspective has been invaluable today. You're helping us see public safety through a fresh, civilian lens." Mary felt a surge of pride. "I'm learning as much as I'm contributing. It's amazing to see how every small detail matters." As they walked back to the car, the neighborhood seemed brighter, almost alive with the knowledge that invisible safeguards were quietly at work. Mary glanced at Jason, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "This is why I'm doing this, to see the threads, understand the connections, and help the community feel safe, even in ways they might never notice." Jason nodded. "And you're doing it beautifully." Mary inhaled the crisp air, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Each day brought new lessons, new responsibilities, and new understanding. She was no longer just Aunt Mary Collins, the curious neighbor. She was becoming an essential link between her community and the systems that protected it. And with that, Chapter 8 came to a close, leaving her more determined, more aware, and more connected than ever before.
The evening sky over Ridgewood Heights was painted with shades of orange and purple as Aunt Mary Collins stepped onto her porch, a notebook clutched tightly in her hands. Today's experiences from the park and community audit still lingered vividly in her mind, but something told her the next phase of her journey would be different. She felt it deep down, a subtle shift, a quiet pull toward responsibility she hadn't fully anticipated. Jason approached, balancing his camera equipment and a folder of documents from previous observations. "You look like you've been thinking all day," he said, settling into the chair beside her. "I have," Mary replied. "Every detail, every interaction, it's all connected, and yet I can sense there's more I need to see, more I need to understand." Before Jason could respond, her phone rang. The display showed Officer Pierce. "Miss Collins?" Pierce's calm voice came through. "We have a special assignment today. It's more interactive than before. You'll be engaging directly with residents, helping facilitate a small-scale community preparedness workshop. Are you available?" Mary straightened immediately. "Absolutely. Where do we start?" Pierce explained the location, a community hall a few blocks away, and the objectives. Mary's pulse quickened. This was her first chance to interact directly with residents regarding ordinances and safety. It wasn't just observation anymore. It was active participation. At the hall, residents were already gathering. Families, young adults, and senior citizens mingled, chatting politely and showing curiosity. Officer Pierce and Ava Robinson greeted them, explaining the workshop's purpose and emphasizing the importance of understanding local safety measures and ordinances. Mary stepped forward, feeling a mixture of nerves and determination. She began addressing the small crowd. "Good evening, everyone," she said warmly. "Today, we'll explore how simple ordinances and safety procedures keep our community secure. My role here is to help you see the systems in action and understand why each small step matters." Jason quietly recorded her introduction, noting the confidence in her voice. Residents listened attentively, intrigued by Mary's approachable and sincere tone. As the workshop progressed, Mary guided participants through interactive exercises, identifying safety hazards, understanding emergency alert systems, and reviewing basic compliance measures in homes and public areas. She posed questions, encouraged discussion, and patiently explained the reasons behind each regulation. One elderly resident raised a hand. "I always wondered why certain signs and procedures exist in our neighborhood. Now it makes sense. It's for everyone's safety." Mary smiled.
Exactly. Knowledge empowers us. When we understand why rules exist, we can follow them effectively and even help others do the same. Ava whispered to Pierce, "Mary's connecting with them in a way I didn't expect. They're really responding to her." Pierce nodded quietly. "She's exceptional. This is exactly the kind of civilian engagement we hope for." After nearly 2 hours, the workshop concluded. Residents left with newfound awareness and appreciation, many thanking Mary personally for her guidance. Jason noted the glowing expressions, the subtle gestures of gratitude, and the way Mary's presence had transformed a simple session into a meaningful learning experience. As they walked back to the car, Mary exhaled, her mind alive with reflection. "Jason, today I realized the impact one person can have, not through authority, but through knowledge, patience, and guidance." Jason smiled, admiration evident in his eyes. "You're turning this journey into something bigger than we ever imagined." Mary nodded, feeling the weight and exhilaration of her growing role. "It's more than observing systems. It's about bridging understanding, connecting people to what protects them every day." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting Ridgewood Heights in a soft twilight glow. Mary felt a renewed sense of purpose. With each passing day, her journey deepened, and her connection to the community strengthened. And Chapter 9 closed with the realization that Aunt Mary Collins was no longer merely a participant, she was becoming a guide, a teacher, and a link between the invisible systems and the people they safeguarded. The morning fog hung low over Ridgewood Heights, softening the outlines of houses and trees, giving the neighborhood a dreamlike quality. Aunt Mary Collins stepped outside, inhaling the damp air, her notebook tucked securely under her arm. Today felt different, not because of the weather, but because she sensed a challenge awaiting her that required more than observation or guidance. Jason arrived, a thermos of coffee in hand. "You seem more serious than usual," he remarked. Mary adjusted her glasses, a determined glint in her eyes. "This isn't just another workshop or park inspection. Today, we're visiting a facility where ordinance compliance can have real, immediate consequences if overlooked." Pierce had arranged a visit to a local utilities management center responsible for monitoring gas, water, and electricity systems across Ridgewood Heights. The complexity of the operations fascinated Mary, each system intertwined with the safety of every resident. Upon arrival, the facility loomed large and imposing, with high-security gates and multiple surveillance cameras. Inside, the air was filled with the soft hum of machines and the rhythmic tapping of keyboards. Operators monitored countless displays showing real-time data from the neighborhood's utility networks. "Miss Collins, you're about to see how ordinances and regulations are critical to preventing disasters. Your role today is to observe, ask questions, and offer insight from a civilian perspective." Mary nodded, her pulse quickening. She followed Pierce and Ava through the control room, scanning monitors that displayed water pressure graphs, gas line integrity readings, and electrical load distributions. Each anomaly flagged was a potential risk. Each decision by operators could prevent or mitigate disaster. A sudden alert flashed on one of the screens. "Gas line pressure deviation detected, Sector 7B." Operators immediately sprang into action, coordinating with field teams and verifying sensor data. Mary leaned closer, absorbing every step. The calm efficiency was astonishing, yet the stakes were real. A minor miscalculation could have devastating consequences. Jason whispered, "This is intense, and you're handling it remarkably." Mary nodded, taking notes. It's one thing to read about ordinances or rules. It's another to see their impact in real time, how they protect lives without anyone even noticing. Ava guided Mary to a secondary console where she could interact with the system under supervision. Mary followed instructions carefully, logging data and monitoring reports. Her understanding of the processes deepened with each click, each observation, each question. After several tense but educational hours, Pierce gathered the team. Miss Collins, your observations have been insightful. You notice details and ask questions that help us refine our procedures. Your civilian perspective is invaluable. Mary smiled, a mix of pride and humility washing over her. Thank you. Seeing this firsthand makes me appreciate the people behind the systems and the importance of every small action. As they left the facility, the fog had lifted slightly, sunlight beginning to pierce through. Mary felt an exhilarating sense of purpose. She had witnessed firsthand how ordinances weren't abstract rules, they were lifelines. Every line of code, every protocol, every alert worked together to keep the community safe. Jason glanced at her. You're really becoming part of this system, even if unofficially. Mary nodded, determination etched into her expression. Part of it. Not to control it, but to understand it, support it, and help others see its value. As the car drove through the streets, Mary's mind raced with possibilities. Each observation, each interaction, each challenge had strengthened her connection to the invisible structures that safeguarded her community. She was no longer just an observer, she was an active participant, a bridge between people and systems. And with that realization, Chapter 10 closed, leaving Aunt Mary Collins poised for the next stage of her transformative journey.
The early morning sun spilled through the blinds of Aunt Mary Collins's kitchen, casting warm streaks of light across the countertop where her coffee mug steamed gently. Today was special. Mary could feel it, a subtle anticipation humming through the air. This phase of her journey would take her beyond observation, beyond workshops and parks. Today, she would experience the community from the inside out. Jason leaned against the counter, watching her pack her notebook and camera. "You're more focused than ever," he remarked. Mary adjusted her glasses and smiled with quiet determination. "Jason, everything we've done so far has been preparation. Today, we see how ordinances, systems, and people interact in real situations. This is where theory meets reality." Their destination was the Community Operations and Response Center, a hub where local ordnance teams coordinated emergency responses and public service activities. As they arrived, the building buzzed with energy, phones ringing, monitors flashing, and people moving quickly but with precision. Officer Pierce met them at the entrance. "Miss Collins, Jason, welcome back. Today you'll observe and participate in active community coordination exercises. Some scenarios will simulate real emergencies. Your role is to monitor, report, and provide insights as a civilian observer." Mary nodded. Her pulse quickened. This was the moment she had been preparing for, immersed fully in the machinery of her community's safety network. Inside the center, rows of workstations displayed maps, live feeds, and emergency alerts. Staff communicated efficiently, directing simulated emergency responses while coordinating with field units. Mary felt both awe and responsibility. Every action had consequences, even in a controlled exercise. Suddenly, a simulated alert appeared. Chemical spill reported near residential sector. Alarms sounded softly, prompting operators to follow established emergency protocols. Mary's eyes widened as Pierce guided her through the chain of events, the dispatch of field teams, neighborhood alerts, evacuation instructions, and coordination with medical units. She leaned over the console, taking notes and occasionally asking questions. "So, if even one notification is delayed, it could affect everyone downstream?" she asked. Pierce nodded. "Exactly. Timeliness and clarity are everything. A single mistake can cascade into multiple issues." Ava Robinson stepped beside Mary, showing her how to log observations and communicate minor discrepancies to supervisors. Mary followed instructions carefully, her focus absolute. She began to notice patterns, redundancies built in to prevent failure, clear hierarchies of responsibility, and protocols designed to ensure human error was minimized. Jason, observing quietly, whispered, "You're really getting it now. You're seeing the system breathe." Mary smiled faintly. "Not just seeing it, understanding it.
This is bigger than anyone realizes. Every protocol, every rule, every step is a lifeline. After hours of simulations, feedback sessions, and analysis, Pierce addressed Mary personally. Miss Collins, your observations today have been exceptional. You notice details many trained personnel overlook, and your civilian perspective adds clarity to our procedures. Mary felt a swell of pride. Thank you, Officer Pierce. I think I'm beginning to see how connected everything is, from ordinances to the people they protect. As they left the center, the afternoon sun had climbed higher, warming the streets of Ridgewood Heights. Mary walked beside Jason, her mind buzzing with new insights and questions. "This journey is changing me," she said quietly. "It's not just about understanding systems. It's about seeing the responsibility behind every small action and helping others recognize it too." Jason smiled. "You're not just observing anymore, Aunt Mary. You're part of the heartbeat of this community." Mary inhaled deeply, the air crisp and alive with possibility. Each day had deepened her understanding, each experience had strengthened her purpose, and each observation had brought her closer to the delicate balance of protection, knowledge, and responsibility. And as Chapter 11 closed, Mary Collins felt a quiet certainty. Her journey was far from over. She was not only learning the system, she was becoming an essential part of it.
The streets of Ridgewood Heights were bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. Aunt Mary Collins walked briskly toward the local community hall, notebook in hand, and a quiet sense of anticipation in her chest. Today's session was different. It wasn't a simulation, a workshop, or a field visit. Today, she would witness the coordination of emergency response teams in real time, alongside both civilians and professionals. Jason jogged to catch up. "You look focused, Aunt Mary. Nervous?" Mary shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. "No, focused. Every step we've taken led here. Today, I see how ordinances, people, and systems merge when it matters most." Upon arrival, the community hall was buzzing with energy. Volunteers, city employees, and residents prepared for a scheduled drill simulating multiple emergency scenarios: a fire in a residential complex, a minor chemical spill, and a public alert for a sudden weather hazard. Screens displayed maps, live feeds, and alert statuses, while staff coordinated movements and communications with remarkable precision. Officer Pierce approached Mary. "Today is about real-time observation and decision-making. You'll watch how teams interact, how alerts are processed, and how civilians respond under guidance. Your role is to note patterns, offer insights, and understand the human element behind the protocols." Mary nodded, gripping her notebook tightly. She felt the weight of responsibility, the knowledge that even in a controlled drill, the lessons applied to real-life safety. The first alert came in. Simulated residential fire, Sector 12B. Alarms rang softly as the operators directed response teams. Mary watched intently as staff coordinated with field units, verified evacuation routes, and ensured communication lines were clear. Every decision had purpose, and every second mattered. Ava whispered beside her. "Notice how they prioritize tasks. Evacuation comes first, then containment, then reporting. It's all structured to minimize risk and maximize efficiency." Mary leaned closer, taking notes on timing, decision flow, and human interaction. She saw how a single operator's clarity could prevent confusion, how volunteers reinforced protocols, and how residents' understanding of ordinances affected their responses. Jason whispered, impressed, "It's like watching an orchestra. Each player has to be in sync, or chaos ensues." Mary smiled faintly. "Exactly. And ordinances are the sheet music guiding everyone. Quiet, unseen, but essential." As the drill progressed, minor simulated errors were introduced: a delayed report, a misread alert, and an improperly closed evacuation path. Mary observed how operators adapted, corrected mistakes, and ensured that no step went unchecked.
She realized the importance of resilience, flexibility, and training, the human factor that turned rigid rules into practical safety measures. After hours of simulation, Pierce gathered the team. Miss Collins, your insights have been invaluable. You notice details that even experienced staff sometimes overlook. Your civilian perspective highlights areas where communication can improve. Mary felt a quiet pride. Thank you. Today I realized it's not just about rules or protocols. It's about people, awareness, and understanding how each action impacts someone else. As they left the hall, the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows over the streets. Mary and Jason walked side by side, the city alive around them, yet invisible threads of safety holding it all together. Jason glanced at her. You're seeing the bigger picture now, aren't you? Mary nodded. Yes, it's bigger than systems or ordinances. It's about connection, people connected to people, systems and community. And I want to help that connection grow stronger. The streets of Ridgewood Heights were quieting down for the evening, but Mary's mind was buzzing with clarity and purpose. Each day had strengthened her understanding, sharpened her insights, and deepened her role in this delicate network of responsibility.
The early morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew and freshly cut grass across Ridgewood Heights. Aunt Mary Collins stood at the edge of a small community plaza, notebook in hand, her eyes scanning the surroundings with a mix of curiosity and determination. Today, she would witness something entirely new, a coordinated community safety drill involving multiple neighborhoods, a real test of communication, preparation, and teamwork. Jason jogged up beside her, coffee in one hand, camera in the other. This looks intense, he said, glancing at the cluster of people already assembling in uniforms and reflective vests. Mary nodded. It is, and it's exactly what we've been building toward. Today, we see the full picture. The system, the people, and the ordinances working together in real time. Officer Pierce and Ava Robinson were already on site, coordinating with local volunteers and emergency personnel. Pierce waved to Mary as she approached. Miss Collins, good morning. Today's drill will cover multiple scenarios: structural hazards, minor chemical alerts, and community evacuations. We'll need your observations on both operational efficiency and civilian interaction. Mary adjusted her notebook. Understood. I'm ready. As the drill began, alerts flashed across monitors. Minor structural damage reported at Oak Street Residential Complex. Alarms rang softly, and field teams mobilized, following precise instructions. Mary watched carefully as communication lines were tested between multiple stations, teams, and volunteers. Ava whispered beside her. Notice how every action has a clear purpose? Even small gestures, like a radio confirmation or a simple report, prevent confusion downstream. Mary nodded, jotting down observations. She saw how volunteers reassured residents, how operators double-checked data, and how residents who understood basic ordinances responded quickly and confidently. Every element reinforced the others. Suddenly, a secondary alert appeared. Simulated gas leak near community center. Operators coordinated evacuation routes while simultaneously managing communication with nearby schools and hospitals. Mary observed the precision with which the system adapted to overlapping emergencies. Jason, whispering, said, "It's incredible. Every detail matters and everyone's in sync." Mary agreed silently, but her mind focused on the human aspect, the calm yet responsive behavior of the operators, the attentiveness of the volunteers, and the willingness of residents to follow instructions without panic. Ordinances, she realized, weren't just rules on paper. They were guides that empowered people to act responsibly under pressure. As the drill concluded, Pierce gathered the team. Miss Collins, your observations were exceptional. You noticed procedural gaps and strengths alike, and your civilian insight helps us refine our systems further.
Mary felt a quiet satisfaction. Thank you. Today reinforced something I've been learning. Protection isn't just about systems or protocols. It's about people, awareness, and the trust they place in those systems. Jason smiled. And you're becoming part of that trust. Mary inhaled the morning air deeply, the plaza now quiet and orderly after the drill. She felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a renewed understanding of responsibility. The day's experiences had shown her how intertwined ordinances, people, and systems truly were, and how critical her growing perspective could be in bridging the gap between them. As they left the plaza, the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating Ridgewood Heights in a warm, golden light. Mary glanced at Jason. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "There's still so much to see, learn, and understand. But today I know we're moving in the right direction." And with that, Chapter 13 closed, leaving Aunt Mary Collins more empowered, more aware, and more connected to the heartbeat of her community than ever before.
The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Ridgewood Heights, bathing the streets in a warm, golden hue. Aunt Mary Collins walked briskly along the sidewalk, notebook in hand, her mind racing with the experiences of the past weeks. Today, she had been invited to witness a real-time community coordination meeting, a step beyond drills, workshops, and observations. This was where plans were made, responsibilities assigned, and strategies refined for actual scenarios. Jason jogged up beside her, camera slung over his shoulder. "Looks like we're moving into the big leagues," he said, smirking. Mary smiled, adjusting her glasses. "Exactly. Today, I'll see how everything comes together, the planning, the decision-making, and the execution. It's the culmination of everything I've learned so far." They arrived at the Community Operations Building, where Pierce and Ava were already reviewing documents and coordinating with several team leaders. The room was alive with energy. Maps covered the walls, monitors displayed live feeds from neighborhood sensors, and volunteers communicated via radios, tablets, and in-person briefings. "Good afternoon, Miss Collins," Pierce greeted her. "Today, you'll observe our strategic planning session for upcoming community operations. You'll see how we prioritize alerts, deploy field teams, and communicate with residents. Your perspective will help us identify gaps and improve procedures." Mary nodded, her pulse quickening. She felt the weight of responsibility. This was no longer just observation. This was an insight into the very backbone of her community's safety. The meeting began. Team leaders presented updates on ongoing operations, minor infrastructure repairs, neighborhood patrols, and compliance checks. Each discussion highlighted interdependencies between systems, people, and ordinances. Mary took detailed notes, her eyes darting between monitors and maps, absorbing every detail. Suddenly, an urgent alert flashed. Unexpected power outage in Sector 9C. Operators spring into action, communicating with utility teams and residents, checking backup systems, and coordinating emergency services. Mary watched closely, noting the efficiency and precision with which each team member executed their responsibilities. Ava whispered, "Notice how they stay calm under pressure. Even unexpected events are managed systematically." Mary nodded, impressed. "It's incredible. Every procedure, every ordinance, every line of communication exists to prevent chaos and protect the community." The session continued with additional scenarios, each testing different aspects of the community's readiness: a minor chemical leak, a small-scale flood alert, and a simulated traffic disruption. Mary observed, asked questions, and offered insights, noting areas where procedures could be improved or clarified for residents. Pierce finally addressed her directly. "Miss Collins, your observations today were exceptional. You've identified critical points and offered perspectives that will help us refine our operations. You're beginning to see how civilians and professionals can collaborate effectively." Mary smiled, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. "Thank you. Today reinforced something I've come to realize. Ordinances aren't just rules.
They're tools. They guide people, systems, and communities towards safety, and understanding them empowers everyone. As they left the building, the sun dipped lower, painting Ridgewood Heights in shades of pink and orange. Mary glanced at Jason, who was capturing moments with quiet awe. "This journey keeps growing," she said softly. "Each day reveals something new, another layer of understanding, another connection." Jason nodded. "And you're becoming the link that brings all those layers together." Mary inhaled deeply, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face and the weight of her growing responsibility. Each observation, each interaction, each lesson had strengthened her understanding and deepened her role in the delicate network that safeguarded her community. And with that, Chapter 14 closed, leaving Aunt Mary Collins more insightful, more engaged, and more committed to her purpose than ever before.
The first light of dawn crept over Ridgewood Heights, painting the streets in a soft, golden hue. Aunt Mary Collins stood on her porch, notebook in hand, her eyes sweeping across the neighborhood she had come to know intimately over the past weeks. Today felt monumental, not because of a single drill, workshop, or observation, but because she sensed a culmination of everything she had learned, seen, and experienced. Jason joined her, carrying the camera and his ever-present notebook. "This is it, huh?" he asked softly. Mary nodded, a quiet determination in her eyes. "Yes, Jason. Today we see the full picture, the system, the people, the ordinances, and the impact we can make together." They arrived at the Community Coordination Center, where Officer Pierce and Ava Robinson were already orchestrating the day's schedule. The center buzzed with focused energy. Operators monitored sensors, volunteers coordinated neighborhood checks, and residents were briefed on participation in a simulated multi-layer emergency drill that integrated everything Mary had observed in the past chapters. Pierce greeted Mary warmly. "Miss Collins, today you'll observe the integration of all aspects of our community safety network: real-time alerts, field operations, resident responses, and procedural execution. Your insights will help refine our system and guide future engagement." Mary nodded. She felt a sense of gravity, mixed with excitement. She was about to witness the full spectrum of community protection, from ordinances on paper to action in the streets. The drill began. Alerts flashed on monitors. Simulated chemical leak in Sector 5B, minor structural damage in Residential Area 8A, and sudden power outage in 9C. Operators and volunteers acted swiftly. Field teams moved efficiently. Residents followed instructions calmly, and communication channels buzzed with controlled activity. Mary observed every detail: the precision, the coordination, the seamless integration of ordinances, human response, and technology. Ava leaned close. "Notice how far you've come. You've seen each piece in isolation, but now you see them all working together." Mary watched as minor errors were corrected immediately. A delayed alert rerouted, a volunteer clarified instructions, and a field team adjusted their approach. Every adjustment reinforced the importance of awareness, adaptability, and preparation. Jason whispered, "You're seeing the heartbeat of the community." Mary smiled, understanding perfectly. "Yes, and it's stronger than I ever imagined." After hours of meticulous simulation, feedback, and reflection, Pierce addressed the team. "Today's drill demonstrated our readiness and highlighted areas for improvement. Miss Collins, your observations have been invaluable. You've brought insight, perspective, and clarity that only a civilian could provide." Mary felt a quiet swell of pride. "Thank you. I've learned more than I could have imagined. It's not just about ordinances or procedures. It's about connecting people to systems, guiding them and empowering them to act responsibly." As the drill concluded, Mary stepped outside,
breathing in the crisp air. The streets of Ridgewood Heights were calm, but she knew the invisible threads of safety, preparedness, and responsibility stretched across every corner, quietly protecting the community. Jason looked at her, admiration clear in his eyes. "You've changed, Aunt Mary, not just how you see the world, but how you act in it." Mary nodded, a serene confidence radiating from her. "I've realized something important. Being part of this community isn't just about observing or following rules. It's about understanding, connecting, and ensuring the safety and well-being of everyone. That's the real impact." The sun climbed higher, illuminating the neighborhood she loved. For the first time, Mary felt the full weight and beauty of her journey. She had grown from a curious observer into a guardian of knowledge, a bridge between systems and citizens, a quiet force ensuring that Ridgewood Heights thrived safely. And with that, Chapter 15 and Aunt Mary Collins' transformative journey came to a close. She stood tall, aware, and empowered, ready to continue guiding, observing, and protecting her community in ways both seen and unseen, knowing that her role, her purpose, and her impact would endure far beyond any drill, workshop, or observation. The story ended, but the legacy of vigilance, understanding, and connection Mary had embraced would ripple through Ridgewood Heights forever.